Well, good morning and welcome once again to ELEVENSES. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and you'll notice there's a slightly different background behind me this morning. That's because I'm out and about, stopping over at a friend's place in Oxford today to broadcast the show before I head off out to do a presentation later today. So, what have we got for you today in today's show? FIM sanctions have hit Russia. The EU Commission is ruling for speed limiters on bikes by 2030. A teenage bike jacker has been sent to prison. Experts warn of rising thefts of EV charging cables. So that's of interest people with EV cars, obviously, but also the increasing number of EV bikes. 5G rollout means bike trackers and car features using 3D will switch off. Very quick story about Andy Ibbott, who is setting off for the Everest base camp. You may remember he suffered a serious stroke a few years ago. You can update your bike with a plug-and-play digital dash. Goldwing Honda are fitting a bunch of electronic upgrades to the Goldwing. Honda has also teased us with the new 1100 Hawk sports bike. And I'll just finish off with a quick talking point today about whether or not cosmetic upgrades and electronic upgrades are really all we have to look forward to for the next few years. So that's it for today's show. Settle yourselves down. Be a bit of a quick one, I think, as I need to get off for this talk in a minute. Meanwhile, Sue's looked in, so has Kevin. Good morning to both of you. Right, well, it's a nice bright morning at the moment here in Oxford. I'm not sure it's going to stay that way. The forecast is for it to get fairly wet and windy as the day goes on. I'm off over to Thames Valley Rosper Group, be about a 45-minute drive, I think, and I'm delivering my presentation called Crash Course, as in how not to. And that's based on a presentation I developed for the Ride Skills courses at Brands Hatch, which I worked on between 2013 and 2019. So don't forget, if you're interested in a talk for your group, I'm always happy to set one up. And just to remind you, the next live webcast on that I will be delivering online will be the full Science of Being Seen presentation, which featured fairly recently in an article which was on the it was Devitt's website, wasn't it? That's the sort of photo of the article itself online on web. I should have given you the URL, but I forgot to do that. Anyway, my talk will be Wednesday, 6th of April at 2000 hours, and you can book that online easily enough. I'll just give you the link to that. Here it comes. So do come along. I've got some new research which is going into the very latest show. You may be aware that Biker Down aren't delivering my Science of Being Seen talk anymore. They're now doing something called Thinking Rider, which is based heavily on Science of Being Seen. I'm yet to discover quite how closely and whether I'm credited, but Science of Being Seen is continually updated, and it is the very latest science. So there we go. That's what's on in my world. What's on outside in the big wide world? Well, the FIM sanctions have now hit Russia. The current conflict in the Ukraine has triggered numerous sanctions by private firms, government bodies, and international agencies. Automotive manufacturers, motorcycles and cars, they've stopped shipments to Russia and Belarus. The Olympic Committee has called for a ban on all Russian and Belarus athletes and officials. They did that on the February the 28th. The FIM has taken rather longer to react. That's the body that controls motorcycle sport around the world. But they have now suspended Russian and Belarusian riders from competing in any two-wheeled international motorcycle competitions. And the suspension also applies to all Russian Federation Motorcycle Federation and Belarusian Federation of Motorcycle Sports officials, experts, members, and agents. So it is a complete ban on any involvement in motorcycle sport. Now, closer to home, you may be aware that under EU rules, which were created in 2019, all new cars sold from the 16th of July 2022 must be fitted with a device capable of automatically limiting the vehicle's speed. This is known as intelligent speed assistance, and many models will already have been delivered to drivers with this feature fitted. Now, the car must automatically operate ISA, and it must do that either by recognizing speed limit signs or via data received from navigation systems. Now, as currently mandated, ISA can be deactivated. Quite a few years ago now, I remember reading about a trial of a motorcycle fitted with a sort of a very, very primitive version of speed adaptation. The trial was undertaken by a university. I think it was Cranfield, if I remember correctly. And when it was in its sort of final form, it was actually shown to a number of different people from around the motorcycle industry. There were some journalists, I seem to remember. There were also some representatives from the motorcycle organisations, including one person that I did actually know. And I think it's fair to say that the feedback was universally negative. I remember the person I knew saying that the feeling of the bike suddenly slowing when you were expecting it to do something else, particularly when it was mid-corner, was actually very startling effect, and it also destabilized the bike. Now, for the moment, that's where the situation seemed to be resting, because the ISA directive that brought in the speed adaptation devices on cars said that it was not suitable for motorcycles. And the FEMA Secretary General, Dolph Willigers, has recently been quoted as saying that when the issue was discussed with the European Commission in 2019, the Commission agreed that ISA could not be mounted to motorcycles. But it seems that the European Commission has now changed their stance, and they now want ISA fitted to all new machines from 2030. Now, this appears to have been triggered by a meeting of the European Parliament's Transport Committee earlier this month, and they argued that ISA, which ensures that motorcycles automatically meet maximum speed limits, they say it could help prevent serious bike crashes. And this, of course, is all part of the Vision Zero plan, that where it's the achievement of zero deaths on roads is planned by the EU by 2050. Now, not surprisingly, FEMA are opposed to the new plan, arguing that motorcycles, not cars, basically, and the activation of these systems could have a serious impact on our driving safety, since they could destabilize the vehicle. Now, Dolph Willigers said, "We do not support any technical feature that takes the rider out of control of the bike, and therefore, while understanding the need to reduce speed in certain situations, we see any type of intelligent speed assistance that interferes with engine control as a danger to motorcyclists." Now, probably a few of you will be thinking, well, that doesn't apply to the UK because we're not in the EU anymore. But remember, as I mentioned last time out when I was talking about Triumph and why they were bringing back production to the UK from Thailand, there is a zero tariff agreement between the EU and Europe. So vehicles can move both ways. That obviously includes motorcycles. And what it means is that any motorcycle sold or built in the UK will comply to EU standards. So it'll be interesting to see how that particular story develops. Now, don't forget, you're watching Elevenses with Kevin Williams, and if you have any comments, any questions, I'm always happy to get to them. I'll try to get to them during the show if I possibly can. If I can't do it during the show, I will get back to you by the end of it. The YouTube channel is normally updated immediately after the show. As I'm on a bit of a tight schedule today, I will be doing that probably tomorrow morning. But don't forget, it's Wednesdays and Sundays at 11 for this show, and normally you'll catch up within the hour over on YouTube. Right, okay, so next story. Now, over the last couple of years, I've reported on a number of cases in which motorcyclists and cyclists as well have been mugged for their bikes. Last year, possibly recall that there was a spate of thefts in or around Richmond Park. There was a particularly nasty one where a cyclist was threatened with a machete. But there have been other incidents with thieves riding mopeds who've actually stolen motorcycles and mopeds too. March the 2nd, just literally 10 days or so ago, a Just Eat cycle delivery rider was actually stabbed in the back during an attempted bike jacking in Birmingham. The unnamed rider, said to be a male in his 30s, was approached by 4 youths at around 6 p.m. And after the attack, he collapsed to the ground. Now, he was treated at the scene, taken to hospital for further treatment, and he's said to be in a stable condition with his injuries no longer life-threatening. His assailants fled the scene on 2 motorbikes, and West Midlands police report no arrests have so far been made. But in Sheffield, one youth has been caught, charged, and sentenced. Blake Houghton, a 19-year-old teenager who was part of a gang that stole a motorbike and a bicycle in Sheffield after mugging their owners, has been jailed by Sheffield Crown Court. Along with an accomplice on a motorbike, Houghton was said to have trapped a cyclist in Sheffield who was then threatened before he rode away on the bike. And in an earlier incident, Houghton was one of 4 occupants of a car who likewise trapped a motorcyclist and threatened the rider with violence unless he handed over the motorcycle, which he duly did. Now, he's 19, he's said to have no previous convictions, but he was actually sentenced to 27 months in custody after he pleaded guilty to these 2 offences, plus 2 burglaries and a dangerous driving offence. Apparently, he fell off whilst trying to perform a wheelie. Right, okay. Continuing on the crime stories, experts are actually warning that there are rising thefts of EV charging cables. Now, once again, this may not affect motorcyclists particularly just at this moment, because most EVs are actually still cars, obviously. But I've always been a bit concerned, I have to say, about the issues of leaving high voltage electric cables trading around between the charging point and the vehicle, particularly when it's out in the open, when you're charging from a public charger on a residential street, or even if you've got a charging point outside your garage, or it's on the wall of your house and your car's parked on the drive, because it's always appeared ripe for vandalism. But it hasn't taken the criminal community long to recognize there's an opportunity. Now, these cables, of course, are made of copper. Copper can be sold as scrap, and typically a charging cable apparently is worth about £50 for scrap value. So increasing numbers of these cables are being stolen, either when the car is actually on charge and unattended, or even from car boots. Most people, of course, store their charging cable in the boot. And when you have your charging cable stolen, people who go to get a replacement are discovering it could cost up to £700, which is a crazy price, frankly. There are more than 400,000 electric vehicles and 750,000 plug-ins on the road at the moment. So it's being predicted that this cable theft could soon dwarf the 10,000 catalytic converters that are stolen each year. That's happened to 2 of my friends recently. But charging cables, if you've got them, lock them away somewhere safe. The ROC actually recommends that you stay with your car when it's charging in public, which I have to say rather defeats the object of stopping to charge at a motorway service and getting a coffee whilst you do. Right, okay, so just another quick reminder, if you do enjoy the show, do please pop over to my coffee page where you can support me over there. Nice cup of coffee, keeps me going, and also helps provide for the time I spend researching these shows. So more technology. As you're probably aware, 5G wireless is now being rolled out in many countries, but what's probably less well known is that the 3G network that the operators also have running simultaneously will be phased out. It's apparently a process known as sunsetting. In the US, it's about to happen, and where the US leads, the UK is not too far behind. And whilst it means that my ancient Nokia backup phone will stop working, there's a more serious side to this. There are a number of products on the market for motorcyclists and vehicles generally that rely on 3G service for communication. For example, many of the cheaper bike trackers that are little self-contained units run on 3G. They will stop working. But what's rather more surprising is that some of the safety features built into remarkably recent cars also rely on 3G and will not work. So the majority of connected devices do utilize the 4G network, but many vehicles still operate on 3G. And I was surprised at how modern some of these cars are that will lose their connectivity. For example, just to look at Audi range, the following models use 3G connectivity. That's the A3 e-tron, which ran from 2016 to 2018, the A4 Allroad, which ran from 2013 to 2018, the A5, the A8, the RS5, the Q3, the Q5, the Q7. With the exception of the RS5, which ran to 2019, all those model runs were up to 2018. And that's really not a very long time ago. And the Audi website actually lists the connected features that will be lost. They range from the online roadside assistance, the stolen vehicle location feature, but they also lose some rather less important information, real-time fuel prices, but they also give traffic light information apparently, and that will also be lost. And the big feature that goes missing is Audi SOS and the emergency call feature that activates automatically after a crash. Now, the German manufacturer actually advises owners to visit a dealer to have the 3G hardware deactivated, because if you don't, the shutdown will cause the vehicle to display a warning message and emit an audible warning chime to tell the driver that the thing's not connected and the emergency services are not available. Other affected vehicles, Nissan, Porsche, Volkswagen, Volvo, Hyundai, Lexus, Toyota, BMW, Honda, General Motors, Tesla, and so on and so on. Apparently, in the case of Honda, it could even affect some 2022 models. Now, this is hardly obsolescence in the sense of a feature becoming outdated. It's actually, I would say, a serious lack of forward planning by the manufacturer. Now, in some cases, automakers will be pushing a software update to the vehicle, which allows the vehicle to at least retain some of the services after the 3G network is deactivated. But the pre-2018 Audis appear to be unupgradable. And the problem is basically this: each vehicle has its own 3G cell number and SIM card, which is how the car communicates to the Audi Connect service. So it's basically not a case of swapping in a 4G SIM. You can't do that. You can't just buy a new cell phone for the car either. The hardware and the firmware are actually installed in the vehicle. So actually getting it upgraded is going to be difficult, if not impossible. So as I say, this is a motorcycle webcast, so why bother about cars? Well, more and more motorcycles are coming with similar technology built in. For example, turn-by-turn navigation systems. The question is, which system is it built on? If it's running on the older 3G network, and there is a possibility, I haven't checked this, but some of the Chinese Indian machines, for example, may be running on 3G, it will stop working when our 3G network goes offline. And similarly, if you've bought a tracker or are considering buying one to combat bike theft, be very careful to check what network it runs on, because if it's on 3G, it may not be quite such an eBay bargain as it looks. Vodafone are turning their network in UK off next year. Right, okay, so just a quick one here. Andy Ibbott, you may remember, was the former head of the UK branch of the Keith Codes Superbike School. He was also a former MCN road tester. He was a racer before all that, then he became a journalist and instructor. And unfortunately, he had a very serious stroke some years ago, 2011. And he's been working to rehabilitate himself, and he's been taking on challenges to raise money for good causes. And his latest effort is actually a trek to the Everest base camp, and he's aiming to raise £10,000 for Two Wheels for Life. a charity. And talking to MCN, Ibbott said, I wanted to do something big that not only helped people less fortunate than us here in the UK, but also promoted how motorcycles save lives. And that's exactly what Two Wheels for Life and Riders for Health do. So good for Andy Ibbott. Right, okay, so anything else I wanted to say? Right, actually not there. Right, so yes, next story. If you want that all new look for your new bike, or your old bike rather, to make it look like a new bike, one of the things that you can now do is actually fit a plug and play digital dash. And if I can actually get the photograph up, which I had sorted out earlier, I forgot to bring my mouse. I'm operating on touch screen today, which is slightly fiddly. Here we go, we should get that up. There we are. So that's what we're looking at. The TFT displays in the dials, GPS navigation, it sort of replicates the features that are increasingly shown on even quite lightweight entry-level bikes. But the missing, of course, if you've got a bike more than a couple of years old. So the German-based startup called C-Moto, they're based in Hamburg, is developing a range of these aftermarket TFT displays to go on motorcycles with analog gauges or older digital displays. And they hope that they can reach a range of riders because they are producing a range of different displays. This one is obviously sort of classic twin clock display. Something like my old GS500, for example, would have looked very much like this. But you can also get single round displays. There's a tank mounted item which could go on a cruiser, for example. There are more high-tech ones with special sensors which would suit the high-end bikes for the racetrack. And you know, what they come with is Bluetooth, obviously, Wi-Fi. That gives you GPS navigation. You can just make out the arrow there on the inside. Just use the come back. Where was it? Touch screen. Horrible. Go away. That wasn't the picture I was trying to show you. That's gone completely. All right, I'll sort that out in a minute. Let's come back to a picture of me. Yeah, so basically it gets navigation system. You get a handlebar mounted control as well. I'm not quite sure how you fit that on some bikes, but there's not a lot of room. But it helps you switch between things like chat messages. Why would you want that? Radar warnings, possibly useful. Weather forecast, well, looking out the window, it's not raining. That's about as much as I need to know at the moment. And music streams, possibly the most useless thing of all. I hate listening to music while I'm riding. Voice assist, yes, all right. GPS alarm and tracking systems, possibly. You can also talk to other bikes who have a similar equipped bike via helmet intercoms, of course. The digital dashes aren't yet available, though, before you get too excited, but they are hoping to bring them to the market very soon. All right, rather less up to date is Honda's venerable Goldwing. It's been around for a while yet, and one thing it will get is a radar adaptive cruise control. Now, Ducati and KTM have already launched this kind of system, and it's based on radar for those bikes. Kawasaki have got a similar kind of system, but it's based on cameras, and that's going to be fitted to the new Ninja H2 model. Now, one benefit, obviously, of the Goldwing's voluminous fairing is it's easy to hide a radar unit away. It's not been so easy on some of the other bikes, apparently. The cameras, though, are remarkably tiny. I've seen the Kawasaki ones. Honda also planning to fit the Goldwing with a rear-mounted radar system. And again, the top cases and side boxes probably make that relatively easy to hide, and that will be used for a blind spot detection feature. And it's suggested that Honda could even be using a heads-up display on the upcoming model. I think it's probably more likely that they'll use the TFT display to modify that. Right, so we have a couple of people looking in. Paul's looked in. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Kevin says, I'm yet to find a suitable small LED time clock to stick on my CB600S. Do you know what? I just used a bog standard wristwatch back in the day and just mounted that. I took it off the strap, put some Velcro on the back, and just stuck that on the dash. Worked wonderfully well. Nick says the Monimoto 7 tracker works on LTE connectivity, whatever that means. Yes, good question. I can't remember. I'm not a phone buff, so I don't recall. Nick says hopefully future proof. So yes, but that goes back to the tracker item. The other picture that I intended to show you, if I can actually get the damn thing up online. Oh yes, there it is. Got it. Brought it back. There it is. That is the new Honda Hawk 11. It's due to be shown at the 2022 Osaka Motorcycle Show, which runs from the 19th to the 21st of March, so just a few days away. And the bike has been rumoured. There have been renders and things of what it's due to look like out for some time. And the fairing there does appear to make it look like what it has been shown to, predicted to look like, a sort of basically fairly retro style top fairing on the bike there, and fairly sleek lines. And it's all based around the Africa Twin motor. And interestingly, it's the Africa Twin chassis. So there you are. You have a sports bike which is built around an adventure bike chassis, which rather suggests that the adventure bike element is probably less adventure-y and rather more roady on the Africa Twin itself. Now, that really brings me just to the sort of couple of minutes I want to sort of round off by. I haven't actually prepared this bit of the show like I normally do. But it makes me think that this is actually all the future that we're likely to be able to expect from motorcycles, or at least internal combustion engined bikes. Now, over the last couple of years when I've been running this show, I think we're almost at the 2-year mark, actually 2-year anniversary. I needed to check that, I forgot. I've shown you quite a lot of electric motorcycles, some of which look very much like conventional petrol engine motorcycles and attempt to hide away the electric power as much as they can. And the reason for that is obvious, because they want those bikes to appeal to conventional motorcycle owners. Yes, they don't make the right noises for some riders, but at least if they look like a conventional petrol engine motorcycle, some people will make the jump regardless. Many of the electric bike manufacturers, though, have gone the opposite way. What they've done is they have produced something that, although it has 2 wheels and a source of power and some way of getting that power to the rear wheel, look very much unlike a conventional motorcycle. There have been some rather hideous styling exercises, and there have been some very, very functional bikes which basically reduce the sort of 2-wheel transport to what it was designed to do originally in the first place, which is get people and perhaps some basic tools or luggage from A to B. The Swedish Cake brand is a good example of that particular style of motorcycle. Now, electric bikes are coming along. They will be mandatory as the internal combustion engine is phased out. We're talking about zero tailpipe emissions in the UK and EU. And it makes it hard to see how you can have a hydrogen engined motorcycle. We know that some manufacturers are developing those, because I've talked about that too. Kawasaki, for example, well along the line. Yamaha have also developed hydrogen engined bikes or engines. They've got a Toyota based car engine running in a race series this year. But the trouble is with hydrogen, although you can make clean hydrogen from electric power, it doesn't burn 100% clean. You still get tailpipe emissions. It's not just water that comes out the end. There's nitrous oxides and things as well, which is one of the problems that that the zero tailpipe emissions ruling is trying to cancel out. So it looks like, at the moment at least, unless there are some change of plans, some stay of execution for perhaps lightweight petrol engines, perhaps for hybrids with a small petrol engine to run alongside the electric motor, it looks like the end of the road for the petrol engine and probably for internal combustion engines completely, which means we're looking at electric power. So if that is the state of play, what is the point of a manufacturer developing a new motorcycle engine? When the Hawk story went up on my favorite motorcycle forum a couple of days ago, somebody immediately said, why don't they put a V-twin engine in it like the old Honda Hawk, the Firestorm, the VTR 1000, which was actually one of my favorite bikes. I really liked it. I would have loved one of those, bar the fuel consumption, which was truly appalling. And the answer is basically there's no mileage in producing a new engine. Look at the date, it's 2022. The writing is on the wall. You've now got a very limited lifetime for those motors. There may be markets outside the EU, outside of Japan, outside of the US, where petrol engines can be sold for a little bit longer, but they generally aren't the markets which are buying the cutting edge motorcycles. So the simple answer to why aren't Honda building a new chassis and a new engine and putting it in something like the Honda Hawk is its end of life for petrol engines. So I think all we are going to see for the next 7, 8, 10 years is a series of bikes from the Japanese manufacturers based on engines that are coming out around now or are already out, and they will just keep building the same sort of bikes in new clothes. And if you want a good example of who's doing this already, only look as far as Suzuki's range and look at the number of 1000cc bikes they have. They are all based on the same motor. The motor in those bikes is already 7 or 8 years old. Doesn't mean it's a bad motor, but if you think back to the heady days of the 1980s when there seemed to be a new engine coming out of a Japanese factory every single year, we're simply not going to see that. If there are any new engines appearing, the place I would expect to see them is probably China. And that would be about it. I think there are some developments likely in India too, some lightweight motorcycles, but I would look for China to bring out new petrol engines. For the Japanese, I think we are going to see simply new clothes and new electronics, and that would pretty much be it. So, right, that brings me to the end of today's relatively quick-fire show. Don't forget, sites are being seen. Check out my new mini group rides. The first one is actually bookable already. It's going to, I've forgotten where it's going actually. I meant to put that information in my crib notes and I've forgotten where I said I was going. So, but have a look. Mini group rides are available. The first one will be in April. I'll give you a bit more detail on those on the next show on Wednesday when I'll be back home again. But as I say, if you are out and about today, enjoy the weather while you can. It's getting wet and windy from the west as the day goes on. It's just clouding over here now in Oxford. So, right, okay. Nick says, oh yes, that's about the tracker. Hopefully future-proof, he says. And Samantha says, thank you. You're welcome. Nick says, is Science of Being Seen a repeat of previous? Yes, it is. There will be some new elements in it, but essentially it's a rerun of the one that I ran 4 months ago now. So thank you very much indeed for looking in, everybody. Just as I say, a bit of a quick fire show today. I'll still manage to go on 35 minutes though. So yeah, if you're out there on the roads today, ride safe, stay safe, and hopefully see you on Wednesday.